Hi, I'm Miguel Delaney, Chief Football Writer at The Independent. Argentina are winners, but lots of questions remain about the 2022 World Cup. So let's take a look at what you've asked. Arno asks if this was the best World Cup final ever. Certainly the best one I've attended, and when you probably, to be honest, I'll go even further than that. I think it was like the best football match I've ever attended. It's very rare you get games of such importance where the prize is so great and it's as entertaining as that, as open as that. And I think that spell of football from Mbappe's first penalty to the end of extra time, it was just utterly enthralling. There wasn't there wasn't a second of slowdown, and I've never experienced anything like it. So Dan says, incredible sport, but did Qatar get away with sports washing? I wouldn't say they got away with it, because ultimately the great calculation that's made in these sort of things, of course they're going to get criticism on human rights and the migrant worker system, but they're willing to accept that. It's a kind of, I mean, obviously they'll push back against it, but the way to look at it is, I suppose, that increase in discussion about these issues also comes in amid much greater discussion about Qatar as a whole. So now Qatar, for all these other questions, well, Doha and Lusail Stadium, they're associated with these incredible moments of football history. So it's this benign or positive association. And on top of that, of course, there's all the much more important element of this, which is the amount of political summits that took place. I mean, that's, I suppose, where the real sports washing happens, because it's been, I mean, it's not so much a sporting event as a geopolitical event. So I would say, yes, they did get away with sports washing, very much so. Berner asks, should or could the world disband FIFA, or is there a way to reform it? So this tournament has come amid growing tension between FIFA and UEFA and CONMEBOL. UEFA and CONMEBOL, I mean, when FIFA was threatening to set up a biennial World Cup, UEFA and CONMEBOL already made moves against that. They set up this Finalissima, which is almost, it's one game between the champions of South America and the champions of Europe. It was very much a sign to FIFA of what they would be willing to do if FIFA went further. Because ultimately, I mean, if FIFA went too far with their plans, well, CONMEBOL and UEFA could just basically go and make their own competition. The big stars from South America and Europe are needed for the World Cup, to make so much money. That represents pushback in that sense, I suppose, against FIFA's bigger plans. That could force reform. But I mean, while there is tension, there's also, I suppose, it's interesting the way football goes to these sort of areas, but there's also kind of the nature of international diplomacy and politics to it, and that even with federations that have been really critical of Infantino's age, there's a standoffishness. It's like the Welsh FA and the English FA, for all the issues they've had with FIFA in this term, particularly around the One Love armband campaign, well, they're still endorsing Infantino, albeit they say with some caveats. And similarly, Infantino is going to get re-elected without challenge. So for the moment, I would say this rumbles on, but with a lot of potential flashpoints to cause some of the greatest ructions in football we've ever seen, really. Back to the football. Andy says, Messi, Cristiano, Neymar, Modric, Benzema, Suarez, Lewandowski, Zlatan. Feels like we're nearing the end for a genuinely legendary group of players, and I don't see anything like the same star quality in the next generation. Is that harsh? It probably is harsh, just from the fact that, I mean, it's we didn't just see Messi win the World Cup last night and we also saw Mbappe put what was a signature performance, really, and kind of one of these legend-making performances. I mean, only the second player ever to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final after Jeff First. That put him on 8 goals, which equaled Ronaldo's haul for a single tournament, the original Ronaldo, that is. He didn't get that second World Cup at the age of 23 to emulate Pele, but I mean, he's very obviously Messi's successor, and I would say actually a level above a lot of those players that I mentioned there. I'd put him ahead of Neymar, Modric, Benzema, Suarez, Lewandowski, Zlatan for certain. And there is a kind of a group after. I mean, you have to look at Erling Haaland as well. So I'd say it's a little bit harsh. But I think one of the reasons why it maybe feels so seismic in that sense is because this generation, the Cristiano Messi generation, well, they're the first that have really played with these advances in sports science. So they've gone on for longer than so many more of their predecessors. I mean, even Maradona only had about 5 years at the top, really, whereas Messi's had 15. So it's almost kind of the psychological adaptation to that, because they feel like such legends. But I mean, football academy training is only improving across the world because of all these advances, and ultimately the world will keep producing footballers. So maybe a little harsh, I think, I have to say, but I take the point that it does feel the end of an era. And finally, Jay does actually see some bright spots. The best talent discovery at the World Cup for me is Unahi of Morocco, still young and deserves to move to a big club. What's yours? Probably Enzo Fernandez. I take the point on Unahi as well. I thought he was brilliantly used. But yeah, I mean, let's not forget Jude Bellingham as well, who's kind of announced himself as not just as a promising talent, but as a midfielder who's ready to dominate games now. He's that good. Similarly, Chimani for France. And again, I suppose it speaks to the point that there's so much talent coming through. So thank you for all your questions, not just here, but throughout the World Cup itself. You can keep up to date with all the latest sports news with Independent Sport and watch more on Independent TV. We'll see you again soon on You Ask the Questions.